This is the 82nd Airborne Division, fearless among fighting units.
From Fort Bragg, home of the Airborne and the center of the military universe, this is the All American Legacy Podcast. An inside look at the 100-year history of the 82nd.
They are all American all the way.
Welcome back to the All American Legacy Podcast. This is Christy Lowe. Today we revisit Operation Uphold Democracy, the 1994 Haitian airborne assault that never happened because it didn't have to. The mere threat of 82nd Airborne troops on their way was enough to force a violent regime to back down. In this episode, you'll hear from historians and 4 veterans involved in various aspects of the mission that changed history.
My fellow Americans, tonight I want to speak with you about why the United States is leading the international effort to restore democratic government in Haiti.
Once we came into base that day, you couldn't go home anymore.
Haiti's dictators, led by General Raul Cedras, control the most violent regime in our hemisphere.
I would hate to be in a country or in a environment that was hostile and see 3,000, 6,000, 9,000 people fall from the sky, all heavily armed.
The 82nd Airborne Division, matter of fact, was prepared to be the kick-in-the-door force to enforce the UN resolution, which was to return the democratically elected president back to power.
It was whispered that, hey, we need to leave, the 82nd's on their way, and the response back was, yeah, we know that if we don't succeed, they're on their way. And the messenger turned and said, no, the 82nd is on their way. You need to leave now.
And then he says, okay, how many people in here have a combat patch on your right shoulder? And probably maybe half the people raise their hand. He goes, good, because in 36 hours, everybody in here is going to raise their hand. And he goes, and I can tell you we're going to bring everyone home. Not promising everyone's going to make it, but we're going to bring everybody home.
From the night of September 18th, 1994.
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather and Connie Chung. Good evening. The United States has begun a military occupation of Haiti. The purpose is to install democracy. A very risky last-minute deal was struck that stopped what would have been a full-fledged U.S. military invasion and possibly prevented U.S. casualties. Instead of forcibly removing Haitian military rulers, the Clinton administration has now agreed to work with them, hoping for a peaceful transfer of power back to the exiled elected president. Many questions remain unanswered about all of this. Still, the first day of the military mission went off without a hitch.
It was just like a normal drill for us until we realized we may go somewhere, because we did them all the time. They were always the same. My name is Greg Riggs. I was at E5 with the 4th of the 325 Airborne Infantry Regiment in the 2nd Brigade of the 82nd. Once the live ammo was starting to be handed out, along with some of the grenades and claymores and different things like that, it really got real, and you could start to feel the tension, almost excitement, start to build. I was, like I said, the intel guy, so I actually carried a radio. So I not only was issued my live ammo, claymore, and grenades, however, I got a radio with a satellite antenna and 3 batteries. When you're going into combat, the plane can only take so much weight. So each individual soldier, being fully loaded with ammo and weapons and radios, was weighed upon before getting on their actual chalk or their actual airplane to make sure we didn't overload the plane. Anyway, at that point in time, I was probably 168 pounds soaking wet with my chute on and the radio in my rucksack and all the live ammo. When I got on the scale, I was 313 pounds. When I weighed myself, and I knew it was heavy, but the anticipation, there's something with the anticipation, the excitement, and the adrenaline that kicks in. And that's what I tell everybody that I got when I got out of the Army, that one thing you learn about yourself in the Army that people can't understand is the one thing you learn about your body is if you don't mind, it doesn't matter.
My name is John Arson. I am the Museum Director for the 82nd Airborne Division's War Memorial Museum here at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So the 82nd is alerted for deployment for the airborne operation. You know, they've already moved some of the 10th Mountain on ships, as well as the Rangers outside of Haiti to be ready to support a forcible entry. And so the 82nd, the units go down to Green Ramp and get ready, and they board the aircraft. Meanwhile, the news media is literally at the end of Pope's Airfield filming all this. The Haitians have someone there as well. And so Cedrus didn't believe that the 82nd would actually come. And so once they loaded up the 82nd Airborne Division and it took off ready to go to Haiti, that's when Cedrus finally decided that it was probably better to go ahead and give up rather than attempt to fight the 82nd Airborne Division on the ground.
My actual feel from finding out it wasn't a go was pretty much let down. I was with some of the most highly trained kids in the world that love their country, so I think we were all kind of let down. Yeah, every kid that's there, that's what they train for. That's their job. That's what they really want to do. I mean, you don't think about going to war as much as you think about you've trained for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12 years in some of these kids' cases, and all they want to do is do the real thing. And they're not thinking about dying. They're prepared to die. They don't want to die, but they're prepared to die. But at the same token, this is what you train for. This is what you want to do.
Cedrus was afraid of the threat of the 82nd Airborne Division. You know, that ability to put a paratrooper on the ground under canopy in his country made him give up. And so this was a great example of how you could use the 82nd to achieve that result without actually having to fire a bullet.
Just the way the 82nd enters, I think, is very intimidating because you don't know who these people are. You just know they're jumping out of an airplane to come fulfill their mission. That has to be absolutely intimidating to see all those people fall from the sky. All our mission was to do at that point, I think, was to seize the airfield. The 82nd doesn't typically go in and fight door to door until well after they've been in country. When we go in airborne, we were just going to seize the airfield to bring the big guns in.
The planning of and training for the mission took a considerable length of time. Planners evaluated terrain, casualties, and carried out practice jumps to ensure the most effective route. Troops were also strategically positioning in the Bahamas prior to the invasion, waiting for the green light that never came.
The eyes of the world were on the 82nd because everybody's concerned about Haiti right now. We would be the force to go. Michael Massley. At the time, I was assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division. For months before aircraft ever showed up, I was involved with the planning.
In Haiti, General Cedrus had overthrown Aristide as the government, and Aristide was elected as the democratically elected head of the Haitian government. He wasn't popular, and so General Cedrus took over. Well, the U.S. wanted to help bolster and support the democratically elected government, so they started to negotiate with Cedrus to see if we could, make him move on or allow the democratically elected government to come back. And he wasn't going to make that happen. So over about a 6-month period, there were lots of negotiations with the Department of State and things like that. But the one advantage that the Defense Department had with Cedros is he had come to the U.S. for training. And so a lot of military leaders knew him. You know, the just recently retired Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Colin Powell, had known him. And so what happens is General Powell is asked to go and talk to the Haitian leader. So General Powell and former President Jimmy Carter are sent to Haiti to start the negotiations.
Welcome, President Carter.
Well, Cedros is pretty hardcore, and he doesn't want to give up. And so, you know, meanwhile, back here in the States, you know, the 18th Airborne Corps and the Defense Department's preparing to potentially do a forcible entry operation to restore the government. I believe it was supposed to be a battalion initial task force, so it was about 500 soldiers to be followed by the entirety of the 2nd Brigade, so about 3,200 soldiers were scheduled to arrive there. Again, they would have arrived with their support and other 18th Airborne Corps assets as well. So it was originally planned to be the entire Falcon Brigade was to go down there.
And one of the topics that we spent a lot of time discussing was what drop zones would we select. And there were a couple. We knew where we were going to go for the command post. That was on the airfield, and there was a golf course in the area. So we were going to go to 2 locations there, but the drop zones themselves, the airfield was one. And the other 2, there was a lot of debate over. It was a wide open field that it was very, very, had significant brush in it with large 3-inch, it was like rose bush spikes that were 3 inches long. So we'd either drop into that or drop over top of an electric line. And I know there was a lot of debate, and we did analysis on, okay, where do we take the most casualties, what do we want to do, and looked at plans on taking out the power to the electric lines. A lot of debate on where the drop zone was. We were very concerned about the lights and being illuminated up against the back of the city where we could be identified. So we actually, a bunch of us elected and recommended that we send a team in early and cut the power over the other drop zone where we could drop in over power lines where it was the terrain was a little bit more rolling and gentle, and it was grassier, much better landing for an assault.
And so they start practicing and do all that. Meanwhile, the negotiations are going on, and it's becoming very clear that he's not going to give up. And so the State Department has a doctrine called coercive diplomacy, where you use methods to make someone do things. In the Army, now we have this thing called information operations, but back in 1994, that doctrine didn't exist. It's kind of effects-based use of the military. In other words, we don't have to always use lethal force, but if we use the effects, we can get our desired outcome.
So we were rapid deployed into the Bahamas in advance for the invasion. And so it was my team, my aircraft and crews and crew chiefs that we were down getting ready to go. Todd Whitson, I was with Delta Troop, 1st 17 Cav, 82nd Airborne. At the time, I'm pretty sure at that point I was a captain already, but I was a 2nd platoon leader for, we were Cower Warrior attack helicopters. Somebody had a radio, and we were able to listen to one of the radio stations somewhere in the Bahamas, and they played usually the BBC News. So we were listening, and we found out, listening to the radio, that the delegation had gone down to Haiti. So we were kind of listening intent to that as we were continuing our preparations. And we were I remember I was with a lot of heavy equipment, getting ready to board an aircraft to fly over, because I was not going to be in the initial, I was going to be the following morning crew. And we heard that, yeah, it looks like it might pause because they're still talking to him. And at one point they said their plane was on the runway with the engines running, but they were still talking to the Cedrus, the dictator. At that point, we kind of started getting the hairs on the back of our neck going, this is probably going to get called off. And then they told us to take a stand down for a few hours, which eventually turned into, okay, nope, now we're not going to go.
My fellow Americans, I want to announce that the military leaders of Haiti have agreed to step down from power. The dictators have recognized that it is in their best interest and in the best interest of the Haitian people to relinquish power peacefully, rather than to face imminent action by the forces of the multinational coalition we are leading.
Due to all the traffic that had to get in and out of Haiti for the 10th Mountain Division for the peacekeeping operation, we were stranded there for about 5 days before the Air Force was finally able to get a plane to fly us back to Fort Bragg.
U.S. troops swarming into Haiti. What started out as an invasion suddenly turned into a peaceful occupation, all because of an 11th-hour diplomatic mission that nearly went bust.
Well, my unit was attached to the Joint Task Force, which was responsible for ensuring that the transition to President Aristide and the removal from Haiti of General Cedrus and General Biambi and Colonel Francois, who was the police chief of Port-au-Prince, all that went smoothly. My name is Graves T. Myers. I'm a retired colonel. I was a lieutenant colonel at the time of Operation Uphold Democracy, and I was assigned to the 10th MP Battalion there at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. That is a military police Army CID unit.
Hi, I'm Joe Kuhil, a historian of 19th and 20th century world and European history. Although Jean-Bertrand Aristide had promised to improve Haiti's not only the foundations of its government and its economy, but promised to improve things for people immediately, immediate sort of, necessary human needs. He only was in office for a few months before he was ousted by a military coup. The military sort of higher classes of the military had done very well during the highly corrupt 50s, 60s, and 70s in Haiti, and they didn't like the fact that power and influence was going to be taken away from them. And so when this reformer comes in, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, they realized that the writing was on the wall and their days were numbered, and so they ousted him.
The Haitian people that we dealt with, they were lovely people. They were just great. I can't describe how nice and welcoming they were to us. Now, the people that had been in the ruling class, that had worked with Cedrus and Biambi to oppress the normal Haitian person, they weren't so happy with us. We went into the heights up to above Port-au-Prince in Petionville, where all the rich people lived. We got some nasty looks from some of those folks, but the average people down in the city in Port-au-Prince, they were very happy to see Cedrus and his bad guys gone, and to see the FRAP, FRAPH, I believe is the acronym for it, which was the Haitian Armed Forces, them come out of control of things, and they were going to have, it was a return of democracy to the country, basically.
The one indicator of how bad things had gotten when under the military junta is that the U.S. Coast Guard rescued more than 40,000 Haitians at sea during 1991 and 1992 in these sort of raft, these boat people leaving Haiti, and those are 40,000 people they rescued. We don't know how many died at sea, and if 40,000 people are desperately trying to leave the country on anything that would float, it just shows you that the conditions, the actual day-to-day conditions, the day-to-day finding, food for your family conditions, were bad enough that people were willing to try to float to the Dominican Republic, to try to float to some other place where they might be taken in as refugees.
So, My unit got there about day plus 2, and we were co-located with the 16th MP Brigade in the light industrial compound, which was fairly close to Port-au-Prince International Airport. We got a request from the JTF and the 16th MP Brigade to set up an operation to look for and, if possible, apprehend a fellow named Bobby. Now, he was an attaché, and this was a group of people that Biambi and Cedrus and Francois employed. They were not uniformed military. They were not police. They were the successors to the Tonton Macoutes, which the Duvaliers, Papa and Baby Doc, had used to terrorize the Haitian people. Bobby was a particularly bad actor. He was a Haitian citizen, Haitian national, but he had been a U.S. Marine, and he had returned to Haiti to get rich and to prey off the poor people there in Haiti and working for Cedrus and Biambi. We put together a raid team involving MPs and CID outfit, CID agents, and we launched them from the light industrial compound to go look for Bobby. We worked with the intelligence folks in country, and they told us where Bobby was likely to be found. He had a house up in the heights of Petionville, up from Port-au-Prince, and we found that. And my guys who were on the raid team called back and said, "This is going to be bloodshed." It looked like a place from the old Miami Vice TV show. It was an armed compound. If we'd tried to break in there, it would have been ugly. So I called them back, and we decided we'd try to find them another way. During that operation, though, we worked with the 10th Mountain. We had a Kiowa warrior on strip alert there on the Eisenhower, so we were ready to do what had to be done. But it just didn't seem to be worth the risk at that time. And indeed it wasn't, because the 3rd Battalion, 73rd Armor Regiment had attached a number of their M551 Sheridan armored reconnaissance vehicles to the 10th Mountain Division stabilization forces, and they were there in country with us. A couple days later, in the city of Port-au-Prince and some of the surrounding areas, there was a lot of political activities ongoing, so the JTF set up a number of checkpoints just to ensure that things didn't go bad. And at some of these, the 551s, the Sheridans from the 373 Armor they were featured. They were part of the roadblocks and checkpoints. Turns out that Bobby and his boys turned a corner and they ran smack dab into a Sheridan from the 3rd and 73rd Armor, at which point in time Bobby said, "This is not a good idea," and he and his guys gave up, turned themselves over to the checkpoint people. They notified us there at the compound. We went out with the military police, took Bobby and his folks into custody, brought them back to the light industrial compound, and inventoried all the stuff they had with them, which was a sizable hoard of weapons, drugs, and cash, and turned them over to the authorities, and that's the name of the tune from the apprehension of Bobby.
It was a very fascinating combination of military force and military imagery, but also military smarts and political smarts to realize, to show, right, the hunter, look, this is what's happening, and this is what's going to happen. So in other words, it was kind of this more sophisticated warning than would have happened in the 70s or 80s, right? And it was a better use of technology and all that sort of stuff. It was very, very impressive, and it worked. The junta capitulated, General Cedrus capitulated, and eventually, of course, Bertrand Aristide was returned to power in late '94. So it was the context of the chaos that's always going on in Haitian history that sort of sets the stage for, look, we don't need to land, we just need to threaten to land, and then the junta is going to find themselves in a panic, and then they will capitulate. So it was an excellent use of both the number of troops being deployed and the image of the number of troops being deployed.
The 82nd should be proud of all the preparation for what they did. They had not only the 3rd, the 73rd involved. I'm sure there were other individual soldiers, troopers involved in the operation. They were a very highly trained outfit, ready to go and do their job. Now, having gotten there, and we flew into Port-au-Prince, the international airport, on about day +2, the Haitian forces had trashed that place, and I know that had the airports were that, and there was another one down in City Soleil, were some of the targets that the 82nd would have jumped onto, and they had they had littered them with all sorts of obstacles. So it would not have been an easy operation, but the 82nd was, as always, ready to go do its job for America.
That evening in September 1994, thousands of All American Paratroopers were packed, rigged, armed, and ready, loaded down with M16s, ammunition, water, flashlights, and parachutes. They were stuffed in the back of C-130s and hours away from an airborne invasion into Haiti. For many, this would be their first taste of combat. They were carried by adrenaline, by dreams of airborne glory, by a vision of a return to the division's D-Day glory. They were hours away from a valorous mission, a lifetime of stories, and a gold combat star in the middle of their airborne wings. Those hours were as close as they would get. The division had done its job, and deterrence had won the day. The mission was a success for America and for Haiti. For our paratroopers, valor would have to wait. Thanks for listening to the All American Legacy Podcast. I'm Christy Lowe. Leave us a rating and a review as they help others find this program.